Hey everybody, I'm gonna make this short video real quick. Discussing the Black consciousness movement, the awakening that's happening in this country. This actually, I want to make this video in response to a discussion I had last night with somebody I know on Facebook about why black women shouldn't look up to Marilyn Monroe, but instead look up to Dorothy Dandridge, which is she is an incredible actor, but her work isn't widely known as Marilyn Monroe. But I've had that discussion with black people before about the pros and cons of Marilyn Monroe, and half of them don't even know the life behind the scenes of Marilyn Monroe. I actually have a friend who lives in California. She's part of the Marilyn Monroe fan club, so she's able to back up what I'm saying. How Marilyn Monroe, especially the last few years leading up to her suicide or alleged suicide, she was involved with the Kennedys. She was involved with the mob, and some of the things that she heard and witnessed, probably did cause her to drink and take pills, because being in that circle of power, you're privy to things that nobody else knows. You're privy to knowing who's going to get hit, or who's going to win an election, or who's forced to sleep with who. I mean, who knows? She was probably forced to sleep with John and Robert. So it wasn't like she was this willing slut who was going to sleep with anybody. But if you're in a circle of powerful men or powerful women, and they're power and sex crazed or sex hungry, that you're going to be used in that way. So it would be understandable if she turned to alcohol or pills to cope with the pain. And even it is said that Peter Lawford had a hand in her suicide, but that's a whole different video. But what I want to go back to is how we trash talk Marilyn, but want to uphold Dorothy. But my thing is, why can't people look up to who they look up to? If black women want to look up to Marilyn Monroe or Dorothy, why not do that? Why do you have to choose between one or the other? I mean, I had this discussion before with some young African Americans who were much like most of the Black Lives Matter movement, are very misinformed. I was just telling them, like, if you don't know her story, then don't trash talk her. They was like, oh, she was a slut. She slept around with the Kennedy brothers. And I'm like, no, she wasn't. You don't even know her story to even say anything. But because they're part of this movement where if it's not black, it's not right, or if it doesn't come from the African American culture, it's irrelevant. But my thing is, why can't we just take inspiration from any culture? I mean, my idols, my role models aren't black, not because they're not worthy of being looked up to. It's just my life and my thinking don't align with most black philosophers, hip hop artists, or whatever. Like my heroes are, just to name a few, Bob Dylan, Johnny Cash, Kurt Cobain, and just people along that line. I mean, there are some blacks in the 50s who I do look up to, but as of today, no, there aren't any modern African American role models that I look up to, because to me they're not role models. But yeah, it doesn't mean that I don't appreciate the advancements and the inventions that my race has put forth that literally help the world. It's just that I just find inspiration whoever it is. I'm a big fan of comic books, and no, there's not a lot of African American heroes, but I just feel like you don't need to be black to be inspired by them. I mean, one of my favorite heroes is Batman. And of course, he's not black, but the fact that he does good in his own way is enough to inspire me to do good. I don't need Batman to look black for me to be like, oh, I'm going to follow him because he's black and I'm black, so we have that in common. No, I'm going to follow somebody because they're doing good, and that's what I want to do. I want to do good, so they're doing good. I'm going to follow in their footsteps. And it's just getting to the point where it's getting really elitist. If it's not from us, it's not it's not good for us, and I just don't agree. Like everybody's jumping on. I'm gonna go to the political aspect. Everybody's jumping on the bandwagon of of Bernie Sanders. I'm not voting for Bernie Sanders. I'm not voting for Hillary. I'm not voting for anybody because personally, none of the candidates, Republican or Democrat, suits what I want to, suits the idea of what this country should be. So I'm saying I'm not voting this year. I'm not going to because no candidates fits my agenda. So I just want to say like I just want to go back to saying how I appreciate this awakening in our people to seek knowledge, which is good, but don't twist the knowledge to suit your purpose. Don't say we come from kings and queens when in reality some of us probably didn't. Because if you know your slave history, most of the slave traders only stayed to the outer rims of Africa, and probably outer rims in Central Africa. They didn't go towards Algeria or Tanzania or Egypt, where they had more light-skinned Africans. They stuck to the outer rims of Africa and Central Africa. But also, if you really want to be technical about it, slaves were conquered people of war and forced into slavery by our own. So it was the Africans enslaving other Africans being sold to white Africans. So it's like, if you really want to go back and try to blame white people on slavery, well, that's only true to an extent, but you have to go further back to the beginning where, conquered villages were turned into slaves, which were slaves owning black slaves, which again was traded to white slavers. So we also have ourselves to blame for the African American slave trade. But another thing is, like, if we did come from kings and queens, they were conquered kings and queens of war. So if my village conquered your village and conquered your king, yeah, you was a king, but you're not anymore. You're a slave. So that whole we come from kings and queens is partially true, but I just don't feel like it's like we were royally kings and whites came in and took us. We were kings at a point, but we're not. We're not descended from Egyptian kings and all that. I don't believe that we were, but I think I lost my train of thought. Yeah, it's fine, if you want to, go and search out truth or whatever, that's fine, but don't twist it to make it seem like, there's only one superior race. There is no one superior race. All races have committed atrocities towards each other. Asians committed atrocities against Asians, Europeans against Europeans, Middle Eastern against Middle Eastern, Africans against Africans, Mexicans against Mexicans. We've all screwed each other. So let's not put the whole atrocity on the world on the white people when we all are a part of it. Africans had the Rwandan Civil War. You have the English Civil War. You had back in the 14th century, you had Asians. You had Japan killing Chinese, and then in World War II, you had again Japanese killing Chinese. You have Americans against Americans in the Civil War. But let's just stop thinking like the whole horrible existence of whites, just spread across the world. When we as humans, we're capable of doing horrible things to ourselves without blaming other races. And another thing I want to try to address is not the Confederate flag, but the removal of the Confederate flag. The boy who went into the church and shot up 9 innocent people, he was known as he was known as a racist. But I don't think the Confederate flag had anything to do with it. Just as much as if I go into a white church and I have the American flag, I don't think that the American flag should be taken down because of my actions. You know, the Confederate flag is just, it should be a reminder of history where the country was actually two countries. It shouldn't be a sign of racism. I mean, I don't fly the flag. I don't have nothing, Confederate flag paraphernalia, but as a respecter of history, good and bad, I respect the flag because it is history. It is a part of American history. But that goes back to the fact is that sometimes just some fuck. Trying to get out of this. I'm trying to do like say so much and just get all my thoughts out. But yeah, that whole movement of taking down the Confederate flag, I think that was just misguided. It was just misguided because the Confederate flag had nothing to do with a lunatic. I mean, he was a lunatic. He was crazy. He was evil, and I'm going to touch about that later. He was just evil. Whenever you sit down with 9 people for an hour, and you go in with the intent of killing somebody, and during that whole hour, you don't think maybe these people don't deserve to die. Maybe these people are good people, but for an hour, he sat there for an hour. And then at the end of the hour, he killed 9 innocent people, elderly and children alike. So he was evil, no ifs, and buts about it. And he wasn't schizo, he was just plain evil. But going back to the Confederate flag, the removal of the Confederate flag was just a misguided attempt because the Confederate flag had nothing to do with it. Just like I said, if I went in and killed 9 people and I have the American flag on my sleeve, the American flag on my sleeve has nothing to do with it. I have a jacket with the Umbrella Corporation logo on it. And for those who play games, it's from Resident Evil. So if I go in and I kill, a whole bunch of people and I have that on my flag or on my jacket, are people going to be like, he was wearing an Umbrella Corporation symbol, so that symbol is banned. The symbol had nothing to do with what I did. It had nothing to do with what I did. What I did was my own design, and I chose to do that, regardless of what I was wearing or not. That was my choice. But the whole and that leads me to the Black Lives Matter thing. I can't take them seriously because yes, I don't condone what the cops did. Any cop that kills an innocent person, black or white, deserves to be punished. But the fact that you only focus on white cops killing black kids and ignoring the whole fact that blacks are killing blacks more on a daily basis than cops killing blacks is just ridiculous to me. It's like, because here in the city, there was a 9-year-old kid that got shot. He wasn't even playing basketball. He wasn't in the line of fire. He wasn't, walking down the street and somebody just opened fire. No, he was lured into the alley and shot by a friend of the mother. And now this mother, she went on a spending spree. I don't know. I don't care. Call it what you will. She went on a spending spree. She bought a car. She took a trip to Vegas. And while her son isn't even put in the ground, she was in Vegas. And I felt that was... I don't feel like she mourned her son. I felt like she didn't care about the death of her son. Because she didn't mourn in a way that universally speaks of mourning. She didn't, and even when she did the press conference, I didn't feel like she was genuinely sorry for her loss. I didn't feel like she was actually saddened by what she was going through. But but when I spoke out about it and said, she's wrong for doing this, a whole bunch of people was like, you can't tell how somebody's feeling. People mourn a different way. But yeah, that may be so. But if my son is shot, let alone shot by somebody I knew, I would be highly pissed and highly upset. But the thing is, the parents, the mother and the father, showed very little remorse, very little, grief of anything was actually wrong. And her father is a gang member. I don't care what anybody says. He is a gang member. Because if you're not involved in illegal activity or an illegal group, why not cooperate with the police? Why not give the police what they need? Why be so secretive? Unless you know something. I just found that highly suspicious, and everybody was like, oh, it's wrong for people to judge her. She's mourning. What mourning person buys a car and go to Vegas. Out of all the friends I've died who I know, their parents, their loved ones they barely left the house besides going to the funeral services. That's just how it is. I've never seen nobody mourn like that. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much what I want to say. Kind of went on longer than what I was hoping for, but it's cool. Yeah, so just click click to subscribe, and if you like what you see, if you like what I said, then click to subscribe. This is just me ranting. All right, you guys have a good day.